My name is Brian Doc Holiday. For those of you who don't know me, I am a host of Geektastic Cypher at franklinarmstrong.com. I know it's not at the radio station anymore, so I feel weird saying that because I've said it so many times with the radio station, CJLO. But
CJLO.
I know, but now
you were there for years, right?
Yeah. 2004.
Oh my goodness.
So 13 years.
Like you went straight from like Abbott Radio to Concordia Radio to world domination here at Stingray.
Yes. We're at Stingray, by the way. We're at the Stingray Studios.
This is new to me. I have no idea where I am, but
it's beautiful though.
Yeah,
right?
It's really nice. Fancy. Fancy.
Thank you. I try sometimes. Actually, I'm going to keep the headphones on because then people will see the Stingray logo
on the
headphones.
Good vibes only.
Yeah. All good vibes.
All good vibes. That's
all good vibes. Yeah. Well, you tried. I mean, I respect the fact that you're just like, there's vibes. It's
Those
in
are
there.
What the t-shirts.
Yeah, exactly.
Vibes, so yeah, it's the same thing. It's happening now. Everyone's vibing.
Everyone's vibing
in the world. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know about the world, but you would know about the world because you've been traveling.
I know a tad. Yeah.
A little bit. So I want to do this. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts recently, and
really,
just enormous amounts of podcasts. And I was listening to a Pete Holmes podcast yesterday where he interviewed Melissa Villaseñor, who's now on SNL. Yeah. And I like the structure of that podcast because what he did was, as much as they knew each other, he went back to like before they knew each other and asked like the steps that led to where she is now. And I think I want to do that with you.
Okay. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I want to find out, because right now, so one of the reasons that we're doing this today is because you're promoting your site, which I'll let you tell people what the site is.
Yes, my site. Well, I've had a blog for years. It's called Jenny is Free.
Yep.
So my website or blog, jennyisfree.com. I have a Facebook page, Jenny is Free, and a YouTube page, which I just started, and I hope to conquer the vlogging world in 2018. And next week, I have a book coming out. It'll be posted on my Facebook page, on my YouTube page, on my site. It's called Arrival Stories, and it's a story it's stories collected from my travels for the past 10 years.
10 years?
Of just about, yeah. I like timed it from when I started in 2008. Yeah. So like that's almost 10 years now.
And that's where I kind of want to go back to, because when you and I
probably haven't seen you like since like
I know
when was the last time we saw each other?
Oh man, I don't know. I'm trying to think.
University. We went to Concordia together. Yeah. We went to we go back.
Yeah, we went to Abbott together.
Yes.
We both studied.
First class was what? Was it Ron Hallis?
Exactly. I was actually going to say because yes, rest in peace to Ron Hallis. For those of you from Abbott who know who Ron Hallis is, for those of you who don't, you missed out. He's an awesome person. Yeah. But I actually wanted to mention that because of the fact that when I was fixing the lighting, I was thinking of like him teaching us the 3-point lighting. Yes. Like, how do you get rid of shadows? And I was just like, I don't actually know how to do that anymore. But that's why I was trying to fix it so that this the framing here looks okay. I see
you did
like
a good job. You were taught well.
I think so. Yeah. I feel like it doesn't look that bad. I'm looking at it right now. Oh, by the way, if anyone is listening and the audio is weird or anything, just let me know. Just message us.
Tweet at us. Or no, not tweet. What do people do? Yeah. Do
tweet.
The messenger thingy with the comments. I don't know.
Yeah, we can see the comments on the screen.
Right?
You can also...
there's people on... That's so cool. I've never done this. It's like...
Yeah, you see people live chatting or messaging.
21st century.
Yeah. So 10 years ago, you and I were at Abbott together. No, 12, 13... 14, 15.
2001.
Yeah. Oh, God.
We're old.
I know.
2001, I graduated high school. So yes, Abbott 2001, 2003. Yeah. I think we were there around the same. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I graduated high school 2000, and then I went to Abbott, and I was in liberal arts, and then hated it, and then switched
to call or
creative arts, language, and literature. And and then that's where I met you and Steph and your whole crew.
Yeah.
And you guys had all gone to school together.
Yeah, we were still like high school buddies, and then we all did the artsy thing, and we all ended up in that program. And we did the media arts, so we did film class together. You did the radio because there were like 4 different sides to the program. It was like film and
television,
radio, TV. Yeah,
Ernest Tucker.
Yeah, I never had him.
Oh man, shout out to Ernest Tucker.
I heard about him. Yeah,
yeah.
It was awesome.
And then from that, you decided like you were like, I want to travel. Actually, when did the travel bug hit you? Because that's one of the things that I always wonder with people who are like, I'm going to travel the world. I'm such a homebody. The idea of leaving my city freaks me out sometimes, let alone travel. Like you went to Asia for multiple
like back
times.
in like a bunch of time.
Yeah. So what was that? So what inspired that move to do that?
Yeah, I like kind of talk about it in the book about feeling like there was no option but to go.
Interesting. Okay.
It was just, well, what sparked it was like volunteering through travel. Like in university, I did creative writing. So I like went from media arts to English and literature kind of arts.
Yeah.
And then I did a geography program as a minor, and there was a lot of stuff at the on the 12th floor of the Hall building about doing like volunteers in Central America and all these things, and they seemed kind of expensive, but I was like, it just sparked my interest of something I want to do. Oh, I want to go to Costa Rica and save turtles. That seems really cool.
That is pretty cool. Yeah.
So let me look into that, and then I did, and I found a program that seemed like kind of grassroots, and I went and loved it. And I had a friend at the same time in Belize, so I went to see her. So that was my first kind of big jump into travel by doing it kind of as a local. Like when I went, I didn't do a resort. Like I was swimming in the reef in Belize, and I was like, I'm just with the local marine biologist. Like I'm not doing it as like a resort thing. And I was just like, this is the best way to do it. So whenever I found projects, I would just go. And I felt comfortable in, sometimes it was scary, like having to cross the city or the country on a bus alone. And
stuff. Well, I mean, that's one thing, right? You're a young woman traveling to these places by yourself. That, exactly. Wonder Woman. There you go. It's kind of one of those feelings of like, because I have trepidations about just doing that myself. Like when I went to Australia by myself.
Oh yeah,
I won a trip, so I don't consider that the same as being inspired to help change lives or save turtles. I was just randomly lucky. Shout outs to CMJ.
I remember seeing that.
Yeah, and I mean that in itself freaked me the fuck out. Like I was just like, because I'm not big on traveling, and so going to Australia was this kind of weird like, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to like, where are you going to go? How are you going to get around? And because my mom's a nurse, I think I just constantly thought about also healthcare. I was just like, what happens if I get hurt? Like, what do I do if I get injured? And I had insurance, and I was just like, and so
you're out of the bubble. So
yeah.
It's a little,
especially because Canada has a really nice bubble, a very nice, secure Medicare bubble that I really like.
And you've worked in hospitals and stuff. My experience in hospitals, it's actually worse here. I guess knock on wood, I've been lucky. But like here, you have something, you go to emergency, you have a cold or something. And I've gone, when I had health and when I worked in Korea, hospitals, they're clean, sleek. You're in and out in like an hour, and they always have. If you're in a city, they usually have a translator for you. Same thing in Thailand. Went to emergency. I had like a cut, and then in and out within an hour. The medication was like $10. What? Insurance, I didn't need it because it was just, you just pay. So I've been lucky to be, if you're in a big city,
I'm already freaked out. I'm already freaked out. You got sick or injured and had to go to hospitals on these trips, and
it's like, I feel like more, but it's better. But there's some places where the care is better than.
Well, that's fair. Yeah, I don't doubt
here. That. People do. There's something called like medical tourism. Even people do that in like Cuba, where they'll go to places where the care is really cheap, and they travel to get like better healthcare.
Interesting.
Like in places like the U.S. or whatever, where and it's like a thing. Not where I do it with that, but I've been in places where I feel safe, even if you have to pay out of pocket. It's like not much. Compared to it's really not.
Are any of those
as
like
scary as it can be?
Yeah. Are any of those like ER trips or any of those stories in the book as well? Like just kind of handling the.
No, but I do talk about like the culture shock or feeling uncomfortable in places, but getting over that and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't have. It's not. There's some crazy stories or some stories about being lost or a time where, or I've have to be helped by the locals or strangers I'm dumped off the bus at 10 p.m. side of the road, and I have no idea where I am, but like I've made my way out, stuff like that. So there's a few stories of how I've been so lucky and it's really when you're in that vulnerable position, you have no choice but to like to adapt and to not freak out. or even with job stuff, like stuff in where I've worked in Korea or China, like teaching there. Just you're on the other side of the world, and you don't really know anything. You can't speak the language. Like you have no choice but to stay calm in some situations. So that really just helps me be more zen. And stuff like that.
So 10 years back, where you're in university, you've gone to Costa Rica, you've swam with marine biologists. You're taking in all the culture and you're learning everything, and now you decide to, what was next? So the program I did Costa Rica with, I think like 2 years after graduating, I was living in Montreal, but I was working in like a cafe. I was trying to find work as a writer. Is that the last place I saw you, when you were by the car wash place cafe? That's the last place.
Java on Jean Talon. Yeah, I worked there for like a year.
Yeah.
I lived in the city, like just outside the city in Ahansek. And I was just doing that. And I did volunteer work as a writer, like freelance stuff. But I felt like I was getting nowhere and like living in poverty, like minimum wage and paying rent and doing that kind of thing. And then an email came from the program I did in Costa Rica being like, we have a deal, because you pay to do these volunteer things. Like you pay a fee for the volunteer fee. But then once you're there, you get kind of room and board. Okay. And then your work is with your service, with your work, you're paid in food,
indentured servitude.
It's a way, and it's a way to gain experience. So like you're not paid, but you're not really spending, because you're nothing's there. So it's nice. It's helped me live kind of simply by being in a place and just working and getting and eat. So you eat the local food, and you have to live in a place where it's pretty simple accommodations. Anyway, so I got an email about them needing teachers in China. Okay. And
I remember you ended up teaching at one point, because that's where that
started, where I can and then I started making an income at that. So, and then I just got that was really the bug. And Asia's so good. I'm in these awesome cities and countries, and you could travel there. So, and that's been like 7 years since I've been doing that.
And I remember you were telling me a story one time. You were like, sometimes like if you're just eating someplace, people would just walk up and like just take out cameras and start taking pictures of you in the window. Like you'd be like at the window eating, you'd like look, and there's just like a group of people taking pictures, and you're like, hi, what are you doing? And you're just like, okay. And they're like, oh.
It's like it's weird when like I'll go to a place. When I did a program in China teaching English, and then I moved to Korea and taught there. And then I got paid for like a year. And then with some of that money, I used to go back to China. Okay. And I backpacked by myself for 4 months. Oh, wow. That was pretty huge. Like around I did like over 10 provinces. Like I did.
Yeah, I remember that time you posting a whole bunch of cool pictures. Like, were you there for like major like New Year's events or something? Because I remember like seeing like really pretty scenic images of you like at events.
I did like all over. Have I ever been? I lived in Korea for a few like Chinese New Year's. Okay. So I've been for that, but I've gone to like temples that have been pretty like not far off the grid, but like, popular with local tourists, not really with international tourists. So I've seen a lot of beautiful things.
Like the things that they appreciate themselves in the country, not the things that we see on the net, or people are just like, check this out. Like you got into it.
In Beijing, I went to the Great Wall. Okay. So I've done some more like popular touristy stuff, but I've gone to, places in southeastern China that people wouldn't really know about if they hadn't backpack in China or live in China. It's just like, So I really I took my guidebook and looked through everything and tried to find kind of off the grid stuff. So the book has places like that, how I've discovered places like that.
That's what I was going to ask you. Was it kind of like have a map and throw a dart and just go to a place?
I love maps. Like I love studying maps. Yeah. So I mapped it out without really planning it. But when I did my my 4-month China thing, like I landed in Shanghai and said I want to do like Shanghai is on like the East Coast. So I want to go like down and west and then around and back out to like Beijing, which is like northeast. Okay. So do like a circle. So I kind of mapped it out through a circle. Same thing with Indonesia. There's a lot of islands, and I tried to map it out. Like in 3 weeks, I did like 4 islands and did like a little circle. And I use kind of the real map as a guide, and then kind of do my thing from there. And I did like, okay, what province is close by? I like to do a lot of overland, not really planes everywhere. So
Okay.
I'm a big like bus and train person.
Oh, cool.
Because the more environmental, and it's cheaper. It's everything. It's cheaper, more environmental. It's longer, but I like
what
slow
were the
travel.
trains like? That must have been, because we're talking populations that are in the billions and like millions in that part of the world.
In China or something. Like it's an adventure. Just like the adventure isn't doing the sights, it's getting there. Like it's, and yeah, it was like, I think the longest trip I'd ever taken when I first went to China was the flight.
Okay.
Like the flight from here, right, to Beijing. It was like a 13-hour flight.
Yeah.
You're just like, this is so far. Oh my goodness. And then a month later, we had like a week off. So we took, and one of our teacher friends recommended me and a few other volunteers, okay, don't go to Beijing. It'll be really busy. Go to this city. And it was kind of in the middle of the country. Okay. So maybe like 700 kilometers from where we were. And we took an overnight bus, and then on the way back, an overnight train. The train from the city back to our town where we were volunteering, it was 24-hour long train ride.
Oh my God.
And I'm glad I didn't do that alone. Like I had two friends, but it was just 24 hours on the train. It makes the 13-hour flight seem like nothing. You're like, oh, I got this.
Yeah. Yeah, because when I went to Australia, it was a 13-hour flight from LA to Sydney. Mm-hmm. And I remember
it's long.
Yeah, I just remember my legs swelling and being like, I feel like the oldest man on earth right now.
You have to move.
Yeah. And you did 24 hours on a train.
Yeah. And
what is it, like a sleeping cart? Or?
Yeah, we had a bed. Well, you can choose like your class. They have a cart where it's just sitting. Yeah. I've done like 7-8 hour train rides just with like the hard seat. Oof. Yeah, but usually it'll be in the day. If it's an overnight thing, I'll get a bed. I won't get like a soft sleeper. I'll get like the hard sleeper. So it's like a tiny kind of hard bunk.
Oh, okay.
And it's usually like you're in a group of four bunks. They have food. It's fairly clean. It's safe. Like you're going pretty slow. You stop in every little town, but it's so cheap. Our trip was like $50 or something.
Oh, wow.
Equivalent. So it's so inexpensive where if you can stomach it, it's worth, it's worth it. And you get to have that experience.
So, I don't know where to start because I want to ask you about like the culture shock. I want to ask you about the language. And I also want to ask you about like bugs. And like creatures. Well, just because you're so, like when you're in the West, we're so like normalized to like some of these, like that's a small little insect and that's a small. But then like you see pictures from like Asia of like creatures that are supposed to be insects and they're as big as like what we would call a small rodent, and I'm like, stuff like that freaks me out because I'm a huge wuss when it comes to that stuff.
So you don't like cockroaches?
Oh, God, no. I was petrified of Australia because
I'd be scared too with the huge but they have stuff that's because it's an island. They have stuff that's only there because it can't leave. Like it's a kangaroos can't like swim to So it's this it's an odd place.
They're just all hanging out on this island like, well, we got to survive, and if we're the last ones, too bad for you humans. So they just know how to kill us.
It's probably one of the most diverse countries, right? Like
when it comes to wildlife, probably. I mean, if you guys are listening and you know how insane the wildlife is, please let us know.
Australia, but there's probably nowhere like it where it's just such a secluded, huge island.
Yeah. Okay, so we're now in. Actually, you know what? I do want to know about the language because I can imagine teaching English in China. You picked up a bit of the language, I would imagine.
That
conversational.
I have really basic conversational Mandarin, which I've lost. But once, if I'm there a month or something, I'll get into it.
Yeah.
I remember once I took a weekend in Korea and I flew to Taipei because I found a flight for $80.
Okay.
So, and it's a 3-hour flight. I'm like, I'm going to Taipei for the weekend, guys.
Crazy.
That's just life in Asia.
Just the things you do.
Yeah.
Hashtag jealous.
Yeah. Hashtag you can do it too.
I know. Yeah. Hashtag I'm petrified. I would stick out like a sore thumb, but okay.
No, they love you. Yeah. No, they love you. No, it's more diverse than some places that are countryside. It's, if you're a foreigner, it's really weird. But big cities, Asia, the cities in Asia are growing and they're so dynamic and stuff. But yeah, the language. Yeah. So when I arrived in Taipei and then I had to speak in the cab to the cab driver in Mandarin, I'd been living in Korea a year and a half at that point, and I had come from China to Korea. And I hadn't used any Mandarin in so long. And then it just came out. I was like, oh, I forgot how to use this. Just like basic, like, okay, go here, take me here, please.
Yeah.
Like really basic. But I was able to do China with knowing very little. But I had a phone and I always had contacts, and I made sure I had the number of where I was staying.
Oh, okay.
And if it was like a lot of the hostels in China are really good. They're like international youth hostels, which means like one of the staff has to speak English. So if I would ever be lost, and I would try and do it where I take like a local bus, which means I wouldn't have to like speak to a cab driver in case like the language barrier was too much. If I did buses or walking, then it's really just up to me. So I learned how to do it kind of that way. But I would always have a phone and the number ready in case I was really lost, and I would call. I talk about that too, like how my process of like survival tactics.
That's what I was just gonna say.
Yeah,
like,
I have like my steps of how to do it and stuff. Tricks if you don't really know the language. But Chinese is an easy kind of conversational language where a lot of the like people who are foreigners who live there, who are there for years, they're fluent. Yeah.
Okay.
Not as much in Korea, but Chinese has more of a like it's a simpler language to learn. So, and my Korean's like also really basic, but I lived there longer. I should know more, but it's a harder language to pick up. It's like one of the top 5 hardest speaking languages. The script is really easy, but the speaking is hard.
And being in Korea, I mean, you're only allowed on one side, right?
I was in the south. I was in the south part. Like the city I lived in is called Busan.
Yeah.
And the war.
I saw the movie about Train to Busan.
Yes.
The horror film.
We were so proud. I was like, yes, movie in Busan.
That movie is amazing, by the way. I'm not usually big on horror
cinema
movies.
Is moving on up. I'm so proud.
Yeah, it was really, really good. If you guys haven't seen Train to Busan, definitely check it out. Don't be afraid to go there after, though, because that's not real. It's a movie. And
trains in Korea, like it was on the train like that. I spent so much time on trains. Like if you live in Korea, it's called the KTX. That's like the bullet train.
Yeah.
And it goes like 300 kilometers an hour. I would take Seoul is like literally like at the top of South Korea. It's like an hour from North Korea.
Okay.
And I lived in Busan, the utmost like south.
Okay.
But the bullet train, I got to Seoul in like 2.5 hours. So I took like weekends to Seoul. So you can cross the country in a few hours with this bullet train.
That's amazing.
It's so nice and clean. It's like you're on a flight. Like
even in the movie,
you saw, in the
movie, it looks like super clean. The doors that separate and everything's all nice and beautiful. And I was just like, impressive. I mean, not that I didn't think. If anything, I think anything in Asia is probably quicker, cleaner, and more efficient than our 8 AMT trains that we have.
Yeah. No, I come back here. I'm like, this is the third world.
Yeah.
Like I talk about that, like traveling from after Korea, I did a trip through like Central Asia into Europe.
Oh, cool.
And I talk about my culture shock in Europe being like, this should be more recognizable to me, but it's harder for me. Like I'm now back in the Western world. I'm in totally more foreign lands than I'm used to. Like, and getting through the trains, I didn't know how to do anything. And I was just like, where's Asia? It's much easier there. I was like,
take me back home.
Yeah. Like, and I stayed with friends in Berlin, and then it was a Korean girl married to a German guy. And we were talking about that over breakfast one morning for like an hour, just being like, the trains, everything in Korea, the trains are so efficient, they come on time. So it's
and then over here we're just like, we wait for a bus and it's like 3 hours late.
So that's the hard thing about adapting back to here. And it's so easy there, so I always go back because it's just easier.
So when was the last time you were over in Asia?
Last summer. Like I finished working in Korea last summer, and then I backpacked for a few months and came back here. This year I did South America and I did some traveling this summer. But it's been a bit since Asia, so I miss it. But a lot of my stories in the book are about my experience in China and Korea, Southeast Asia too, Thailand. But some are when I started out in Central America. Some this summer when I went to Colombia, and I loved it there. So beautiful. Yeah. So I'm still traveling. So what
was your favorite place so far? I mean, based on the discussion.
Say that.
Why? Because you don't want the.
No, I don't. You don't like favorite. I don't know. People who speak to me would be like, she's going to say Myanmar. Because I've been to, like there's places where you can't, it's so different and unique. So
it's apples and oranges. It's not really fair to say.
Yeah. Like Southeast Asia, like Thailand and Myanmar are beautiful, where it's just tropical rainforest and golden pagodas everywhere and food for $1. Like you just,
I'm pretending like I know that, but as you're describing it, and I'm like, I've totally heard those stories. I don't know.
Yeah, like Chiang Mai in Thailand, where it's like the northern Thailand, where it's the jungle and elephants, and there's the sanctuary there. That's just paradise. Like stuff like you can't really beat that. Yeah. So being there, I think so every place had just its own thing to offer that made it fun and perfect. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's fair.
The world is a great
place. I mean, I know so many people who love to travel, and they're always just like, you should travel more. Yeah. And I'm like, cool. And then I'm like Truman from the Truman Show when he goes onto the dock and immediately starts shaking, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, this is I'm just no, you go, and I just turn back because leaving the island of Montreal.
Just the island. You're like, you're in so shore. You're like, I'm lost.
Yes.
No, me too. I'm in Laval. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
This is.
I mean, growing up in Montreal, I remember when I found out maybe at 8 or 9 that we were on an island, and I was just like, oh, okay, cool. And then I remember the first time, like after that, and I left the island of Montreal, I remember thinking to myself, whoa, we're in mainland Canada now. And mainland Canada. And I was like so excited now that I knew that Montreal was an island. I was like, oh, cool. And then now when I think back to that, I'm just like, maybe that's where it started. This whole just stay on the island. It's safer. Anything happens, just stay on the island.
I like to, my dream is to end up in New York one day. So I like to think that we're similar to New Yorkers.
You want to live in New York?
That would be an ideal place for me. Like travelers always have we want to find the perfect place, but there's no one who doesn't like New York. Like it's just the best. But yeah, because we're an island and like that kind of neurotic mentality you're talking about. Like I don't want to leave the island. I feel like New Yorkers have that. So
I know people who have lived on the island. You're off
the bridge and it's a new world. I kind of
lived on the island of Manhattan and have in Brooklyn, 10 years have never left the island of Manhattan.
Brooklyn's like China.
They're just like, why would I cross the bridge or go through a tunnel? Everything I need is
right
here.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, and that's the thing. When I talk to people like you who travel so much, I definitely get that kind of little bit of not a bug, but kind of that thought of could I
try something small? My first flight was to California, where it's stay in the continent, go somewhere different. You can find somewhere go to, do a southern US road trip or something, or go to Newfoundland, somewhere where it's
I'd like to explore
close,
Canada.
But far.
I'd definitely like to explore Canada a bit because I feel like there's a lot to offer in this beautiful, great country of ours. And I haven't explored nowhere near enough of. I've been to Calgary. I've been to Ottawa, Toronto, and somewhere in BC. I don't remember where because we went from Calgary.
Vancouver.
No, not that far. We just drove from Calgary to see the mountains, and we drove over. But I don't know where I was, and because I was also 15. Okay. But yeah, and it makes me I do want to see more of Canada, and I always have this thought of going to the Yukon.
Yukon seems gorgeous.
Right?
I want Yukon. That's I don't have bucket list, but I kind of do, and that would be one place.
And it's just that thought of
Canada's Alaska.
I know,
so pretty. Yeah,
and the pictures are beautiful, and people are just like you really have to, you kind of just have to go there once in your life just to see what it's all about, because then you'll be like, wow, I was in the Yukon. It
just sounds so epic too. The Yukon.
Yeah.
I was in the Yukon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because every time someone friends of mine are just oh, we should go to Texas, and I'm just Texas.
That could be cool.
I know. Yeah. I definitely I wouldn't be against seeing going to Nashville, because one of my friends, Katie, is always telling me about how much Nashville has this really big music scene.
It's this capital, or one of the Austin and Nashville are the capitals.
So stuff like that. And if anything, maybe one of my trips would be more music related, places that have really unique music scenes.
Have you been to Chicago?
No, I haven't.
I spent most of the summer in Chicago.
Oh,
this
cool.
year.
Okay.
And I went to a few blues clubs.
Oh,
Chicago's cool. Like, yeah,
that must be so cool.
Yeah. Buddy Guy's Blues Club. Like, that was really, there's some good not underground, but there's like 10 live blues places where every night it's happening every night.
That's so cool.
And improv and comedy. There's a lot of good live stuff there. That'd be a good try there. That's
Chicago?
Yeah.
Okay.
In the summer. It's
Guys,
like here.
We're going to Chicago.
Let's do it. Yeah. No, it's a really cool. Yeah, that's a cool. I feel like that might be a good trip for you. And it's not too far. Like, you can go there, see how you like it. Yeah. It's similar to, I don't know. To me, it reminded me of Toronto. It's like it's next to like, it's just a Great Lakes, huge town.
Big city, windy city.
Yeah. It has that kind of like huge city vibe. Yeah.
And I mean, they use Toronto to cover as Chicago pretty often too, actually, from what I understand, in the Hollywood North.
Oh,
whenever they film, they're just like, oh, let's just use Toronto.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's Chicago, it's New York, it's every other major city.
Yeah, it's like huge multicultural city by a Great Lake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things when you and I were originally discussing what we were going to go over in this conversation, you said you had a few things that were geek related, specifically like Korean gaming culture.
Yes.
Which, please enlighten me, because I mean, you always hear about Asian gaming culture, and it's like the epitome of like gaming culture. Like, I've had Andrew and Michelle Franklin, two friends of mine, who came on for an episode on Geektastic Cypher a couple months back, discussing Otakuthon. And in that conversation, we talked about how some people almost live in these internet cafes because it's cheap, and there's like vending machines, and you could kind of you don't realize, but you just end up living there.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, I'm sure there's like 30% of the city or the population that I never saw because they were all indoors in these. In like, especially in Korea, everything's really high. Everything's built up. So there's no low building. Every building has like 10 floors. Oh, wow. Okay. And as you get to know the country more, or you're there longer, you're like, every floor is another world. Oh, wow. And every floor will have a karaoke room, and there'll be at least one PC. They call it like a PC bang. Okay. Which is like a PC room, so internet cafe. Yeah. And there's just so many, and in such this underground form where, like, being a foreigner or a teacher where you're just working all day and you go to your little pockets. Okay, you have your local bar, you have your restaurants, you have your world. And unless you're a geek or a huge, not really, like, not a lot of the expats or English teachers I met would do that. It's more for the locals, or they would know where to go to like a really big one or a good one. But yeah, I would walk into full, like, and it's cheaper there too. So yeah, people, like, it's, I think, more of a problem than it is here, where men will just spend like a week at this place, and there's like, there's vending machines. And I've heard stories by people who've worked there and been like, people just run after a week of being there because they can't pay their tab. I was going to ask, like, how do you, because that's the thing, you go into this place, you're there for a week. Where's your income? Like, where's the money coming from? Like, how are you paying for this you're
stuff?
In between work, or if you're, people just, or you just don't have a job, or.
So it's an escape.
Yeah, definitely. And like Korea, Japan, China, so half and half, where it's changing, but it's a culture where I'll be based on image and fitting in. And you have to be of usually a certain way, or it's a high, and a lot of pressure to, like, a lot of students, like, it's like has a really big suicide rate, stuff like that. And even just talking about suicide is taken really lightly. I know, like, I'd have a 10-year-old kid like, oh, teacher, I suicide. Too many tests. Like, but just in the light, like, not
the
where
way
they
they're
actually
using the language. Okay.
But they'll say like, oh, I want to, like, I suicide. Even just that, like, the, like, Konglish.
Like the like casualness of throwing
really
it out.
Casual. Or even I'd hear like my Korean co-teachers having to call the parents and stuff. And I guess I'd hear the word stress a lot. Like, they'd use the English word for stress. Oh, stress. And they'd be speaking in Korean, but I'd hear this talking about like a 6-year-old. and how they were stressed,
Oh,
so
no.
it's a lot of pressure up until university to get into like the best university, and then after that, university is apparently a cakewalk.
Oh,
and then
well, I mean, if you've been prepping your whole life since you were 6, once you get to the big game, you're just like, yo, I got this. And then,
yeah. And it's based like, it's a lot of standardized tests, so it's based on the test. And like I've had like all my coworkers have been Korean, and they're talking about how it's awful the week of the test or the year where you have to do this test to see if what university you'll get into. Like I taught adults for a while too, and I had one student who was I had this group of ladies. They were all teachers. They were adorable. They were like my favorite class. And one lady, I didn't see her for a few days, and then she came back. I was like, oh, where were you? She's like, oh, my daughter has the test this week. So like she was home from her own like English classes and her own work. She took off time to like help take care of her daughter as she was studying. So like
making meals,
the parents had to take off time to like feed the kid. That's how intense. Like I had to take care of my daughter doing these. So it's such a huge, it's a really,
that's like,
we have it lucky. We have a pretty good year.
Yeah. Cause I can't imagine in like Western culture, how like North America is so heavily focused on that kind of like 18 birds out of the bast, like the nest, like go and do it on your own, and then like finals and midterms and stuff, and it's just like nobody's there to help you kind of organize your life. You as an adult have to be like, okay, well, I have these tests, and I also have to eat meals, and I also have a part-time job to cover my tuition and all this stuff. Whereas over there, like the idea that this young woman is like at home studying, and her mom's like making a meal, or someone's helping with laundry, and it's just like, don't worry, we got you until, we're working together to get you through this test. And that seems cool.
Yes, but also like the kids they're out all day. Like they come home at 10 and they don't see their parents. And like they go to extra classes. Like I never worked in the public sector. It was always in the private sector, where I had, when I was in like kinder and elementary, my last class would be at 7, like 7 to 8. So the kids I was teaching
in elementary,
no, they were like 13, 14.
Oh, okay.
But till 8:30, and they would have another class. No, they go home at 10. Like they eat like dried ramen for dinner. Like it's really bad. Yeah.
What time do they start school?
Their public school will start at 8. Yeah. Like it's a 14-hour day until
they have
you're 17, 18.
Do you have homework?
Yes. And there's even places where,
So 8 a.m. and then you're leaving at 10.
Yeah.
And then you also still have to do your homework.
Yes. And sometimes you'll have like study academy. So like a place where you go to do your homework.
Oh, wow.
Where you're not necessarily, because if the parents work long hours too. So they don't have time really it's kind of the teacher's responsibility to take care of it. So, they'll have homework, but like I wouldn't give to those kids because their life is horrible. So you're just like, I
already get it. Like,
you just want to make them like talk to you and not hate you and speak a little English during the day. Just like get them through their life, which is just they're zombies,
and then you get to university and then easy
party time. Yeah,
interesting.
Party time.
It's so backwards for us over here then, because we're like, I remember, high school, you're a kid, you 8 a.m. until 3 something, you go home, you do homework, you play video games, watch TV, and
oh no.
You're like, no.
Yeah, Korean kids would see that and be like, what? What?
But then
you have it pretty good. Yeah.
Oh man.
Watch TV after what is we're so lucky.
So is that like
so then that's the escape, so then the video games provide, and then the pressure too for men being like, I have to. Yeah, it was interesting. When I taught adults, I got more of an insight into this because it's like I spent 2 years learning, like seeing the culture with little kids, and then I was actually able to ask adults. Yeah. Okay, what is
what's the deal?
Yeah, and like there was an election one time when I was teaching, so we talked politics, and I got so much insight. I was just like, oh, I know now. I really know. I've been in Korea now. I can learn more tangible things. But I would teach students, like they'd come in for a class at 10 and they'd be in between jobs. They were similar to overeducated, they had been to, I had one student, brilliant master's degree. He was in his 40s, but he was still kind of living at home. Because if you're unmarried, you don't really move out on your own. You kind of stay in the home.
North Americans are one of the only ones who are just like, you're single, get out. Like,
Yeah.
A lot of cultures, you stay home with your family until you're married.
Yeah.
Because why not? You save money. And anyway, sorry.
Yeah. So no, that's a more common thing, even though it's becoming more of a thing. Like, oh, I want to move out with my girlfriend or boyfriend, and they're breaking.
Tradition.
But but I meet a lot of people. Or people just getting into the workforce and being like, I can't find work and I need to take this class in English it's all about having a good CV, a good resume, and
extra skills. And
or I had students tell me, I don't want to have kids and get married because it's too much responsibility and you have to spend so much money sending these kids to these extracurricular activities.
Yeah.
So I met 20-year-olds being like, I don't want to do any of that because life is too hard and Korean cultures change. So there's there's an escapist aspect to it. So I think that's where the gaming comes in.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Man, when I thought about the gaming being something people were addicted to, I just thought about it once again from that North American perspective of like, this is fun, so I'm going to do it. But this is more like life was hard. Like I went through a lot culturally. Like I go through a lot trying to meet cultural requirements that are expected from you. So you kind of just get to a point where like, I don't want to do this anymore. So it's kind of most kids would be like, I have arguments with my parents. I just want to go to the PC room and play my games. And my mom makes me do homework, and like they're overworked already. So it's a little different than the culture here. I mean, I've seen those videos where like a kid is playing on his console and the dad like walks into the room and like just like takes a sledgehammer and starts destroying the PS3 or the Xbox, and the kid's like cries, like trying to jump between the sledgehammer. And he's like, I have to find the video for you. I'm sure some of you have seen that video, and it's just like, oh my god, like
so angry.
This is so intense. And like, and in one of the videos, the friend is just sitting there watching, and the son's just like, no. And the dad's just like essentially like, I told you to stop. He's like breaking it, and the friend's just like, whoa, man. So it's pretty intense. But okay, that's that gaming culture thing, that's super interesting. It's
another world that when you go into an internet cafe.
You mentioned Korea and China. Did you ever end up in Japan at all?
I went to Tokyo for a few days after I left Korea, but I didn't spend not as much, unfortunately.
But I mean, even just a day in Tokyo must be one of the most amazing things.
Tokyo's the best. I was like, oh, can I move here? Yeah, like it's more expensive there. So for me, I try and do stuff like cheap travel. And so Korea is a much more comfortable place to live, or balanced when it comes to a job you can get. And so I chose Korea and I just got into it, and China's completely different. It was unfortunate. Japan's right there. I was so close to it, but yet so far. Yet so far. And a lot of Koreans go there. That's a big vacation spot. They'll go to Osaka. So that's like a big vacation spot for them. So when you don't have a lot of time off when you're working, in Korea, and I taught again in the private sector. So like, you'd get like a week off a year. You get
wow.
Not like there'd be a few national holidays, like the New Year's or the Mid-Autumn Day. Like there'd be certain festivals, but then everyone gets the time off. So then everyone's going to Japan. So the flights are like 10 times the price. So I never went during the holiday times because you have to book it like 9 months.
Okay.
So I went on my way out of Korea being like, I gotta go. I've never been. So I went to Tokyo, but I really want to go back. It's this perfect land. You see Mount Fuji over in everything's so lovely. I loved like, they have Tower Records and those kind of old school music shops.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And HMV. And remember back in the day, you could HMV and you could like sample the music.
Yes,
they still have that.
Oh,
so
cool.
I did that for like a whole day, just doing all these music things. I was like, I loved it. And they're just huge, like packed with people. And they have an HMV over the Shibuya crossing, which is, the really famous, like huge intersection of all the people like walking.
Oh, yes.
So like they have an HMV there. So I went there and just were watching the people, and I would sit like listening to like J-pop like music and stuff. And it's such a cool.
One of the things. Yeah, that sounds incredible.
Yeah.
Was it?
You like Japan. You love Japan.
Oh my God, I can only imagine how amazing Japan would be. I mean, I'm not huge on like anime and stuff, but just Japanese, because like all my friends who
I can't believe you haven't been. You gotta go. It's like so.
Once again, leaving the island. Oh God, but no, yeah, Tokyo, and it all sounds amazing.
You gotta do it. Yeah, you love Tokyo.
If anything, one of the things is I can live vicariously through you through the book. Because I think that's super cool, like the idea of reading this book and, if anything, kind of lighting that fire of.
Hopefully, it'll inspire you, inspire people and travel your way. Like I talk about how I did it my way, and I'm not trying to preach about how to do it or whatever. I find blogs. Everyone has. Oh, are you a slow traveler? Are you? Everyone's kind of labeled. I don't really like labels, and I'm just like, am I even a traveler? Like, I guess I am, but I just like
in the sense that you just like
places.
going places. Yeah.
But the label travel, I don't really.
Because you're like you're talking about like the people who take pictures of them like holding a hand and looking back at a camera, like those like on the beach travelers, you know?
And with more blog, like with more with the internet now and with Instagram. There's so many like fake accounts, and I end up following, or those people end up following me because of the stuff I post. So I get a lot of stuff where I'm just like, this content isn't good. So I try and post like nice photos with a story. I've seen some of your posts have these like really nice long like tales of the moments. That's kind of what my book is like. Cool. Like it's arrival story, so it's my impressions of a place when I first get there and why I return, and how I'm changed when I'm there. That's kind of how my book is. Like these little Instagram posts I do, which is. And where's the book going to be available? Amazon. Okay. So Amazon Kindle or print on demand. So if you like the old school paper thing, you get it like print on demand, which I'll sign up for, and then or you can just do the ebook. So it'll be, cheap ebook, like $5, price of a beer, and spend a day with my book, and you could travel the world. And the book's title? Arrival Stories. Arrival Stories. Finding new direction in strange places. Oh, nice. Thank you. And now all the social medias, where can everyone find everything about you without being creepy? So just Google Jenny is free. So my name is Jennifer. So Jenny is free. That's my blog.com. Also, like, how did you get that Facebook URL? Because that's amazing. Jenny is free. Thank you. Yeah, it came to me before I started my big China backpacking thing. I was driving here. I was just driving down St. John's in my head, and the name popped. Oh yeah. And back then, 6 years ago, travel blogging wasn't as big, so the name was available. So I started a Google Blogger, and I've been putting on there since then. I don't make money with my blog. I just put like my stories on there. So it's kind of inspired from stuff I did in my blog. Some of the stories are like similar to my blog posts, but you'll get more in-depth stuff. There's a perk to the book. Yes. And there's a whole thing there, and photos, and not too many photos, more words. And it's just in time for the holidays. Yes. Was that intentional by chance? Yeah. Okay. Totally. I feel like everyone's releasing a book now, but and it's it's going to be like released 2 days before my birthday. Oh, that's cute. And it's something I wanted to do for a while. So with any writing thing or any goal, you just got to do it. So I decided, okay, I'm just going to put this out there. I had compiled a lot of stuff at the beginning of this year, because this year I took the year off to commit more time to writing, more time of all these stories that I feel like I have that haven't been able to get out there. I haven't had time to get out there, because even though it seems like I travel a lot, like I was working most of the time. Yeah, I was going to say, like, based on the stories you're telling, you traveled, but everywhere you went, you also worked quite a bit. Yeah, like I was living I do take big trips. Like if I'm going to travel, I'll do a few months. Yeah. But that gives me time more to blog. Like if I have 2 months, then I like doing that. Like I like being in a new city, and then I'll take my first day in the city and go to a new cafe and write for the day. Okay. And that's my way to kind of bond with the city. Like if I'm in a new place and I feel inspired. But when I was working, but most of the time, I've been doing 9-to-5 stuff. So you live normal life, and then it passes you by. So it's just you just happen to be in a new city. But you're living normal. Most of like friends I had in Korea, we're just like, our friends at home think we're living it up, but really we're,
Yeah,
she's like, I have a microwave. Like I go for a run at 7 a.m. Like we're living normal.
Yeah.
Most of the time it was normal, but a little more adventurous, because every day is an adventure there. But life can be an adventure anywhere.
That's
anywhere you go.
So true.
Not
and
to be cliche, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Jenny, thank you. This has been
thank you.
So much fun.
And catching up. Like
yeah. I mean,
buddies.
I like the fact that we essentially just got to have a conversation, and I just also got to record this for people to check out.
Hopefully you enjoy, whoever is listening, hopefully you enjoyed our convo, our catch up.
Let us know. I know there are people like commenting and writing stuff, and
I see that.
I forgot to like pull it closer so I could read it, and I tried doing it through my phone.
Yeah,
because I figured I could see both at the same time, but then I couldn't. So I'm sorry, guys. I thought it would be easier for me to read the comments, but thank you guys.
So I think I'm tagged in this post, so my name should be there. But follow me on Facebook. Jenny is free.
Oh, I can see.
You can find my blog, Jenny is free, my YouTube, and then I'll be releasing the book next week, so it'll be on my social media accounts, so you can get the link there, and it'll be available on Amazon, Kindle, or print on demand.
Jenny is free.
Like. Jenny's free.
JENNYISFREE.
Yes.
I always spell it out just in case. Because, like, for example, my radio show, Geektastic Cypher, is definitely not spelled the way anyone would think to spell Geektastic. So GEEKTASTIQ.
Yes, it is a weird and awkward. Yeah,
CYPHA. I know. I'm sorry. I know. I probably could have made it. But one thing, though, when you Google us, or if you search us on iTunes or Google Play, you will always find Geektastic Cypher, because we are one of a kind. So
if you look up YouTube, Jenny is free. I think the first video that comes up is like Forrest Gump Jenny.
Oh. That's pretty cool, though.
Yeah, so that's not me. I have like 1 or 2 videos up there, so you'll get Forrest Gump Jenny, and then scroll down and you might get me, Jenny.
Yeah.
Because I did it myself. I tried to look up my own stuff, and I was like, oh, it's Jenny.
It's
Jenny. Yeah.
Is there anything special you want to tell people, like, about just in general, like one last imparting message? I always wonder.
Be bold, everyone.
Yeah, that's good. That's I kind of put you on the spot, but that was good. Be bold.
I was
everyone.
like, oh, what do I say?
No, but that's beautiful.
Thank you. That's my go-to advice for life.
Yeah, that's good.
And that has helped me. Like, that was my mantra before I started traveling.
Yeah.
Be bold. And I think I've tried to live boldly.
Yeah. Be bold, everyone.
Be bold.
We're gonna be bold. That's okay. That's it. We'll keep it at that.
Be bold, everyone. That works too.
Yeah. Okay. We'll showcase both and see which one.
And hashtag.
Actually, if you're listening right now, you can let us know. First off, I want to see.
Who's talking to us?
Yeah, because we got messages. So thank you to Phil, who told us the audio is great.
Oh, thank you, Phil.
A big shout out to Stephanie, our Stephanie, who says hello. So kisses to Steph. We want to say thank you to Lee J for tuning in, to Toby,
Hey, Toby.
To Charity Loop.
Oh, Charity. That's my friend Charity from Korea.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
okay.
I've been listening. She has a podcast. I'm listening to her podcast. Hi, Charity.
Hello, Charity.
You'd love Charity.
What's her podcast?
Vast Difference.
Vast Difference.
Yes, when you did your podcast thing, I was going to mention hers because I never listen to podcasts, and I'm going to give you her link to her podcast. You'd love it. She talks with this. Yeah, she moved back to Korea, so she lives in my city in Korea now.
Okay.
And I think she's doing it with a friend from South America, because she lived in South America, I think,
cool.
last year. So it's talking about their lives as living as expats and the culture.
Oh, cool. Okay. Well, big shout out. Yeah. Shout out to Wendell. Shout out to Chris Nicholson, and to everyone else who tuned in.
Thanks, everyone.
And hopefully you guys enjoyed this. And like we said, this is going to be part of a she sends hearts and thank yous from Charity. So so this is going to be part of a Geektastic Cypher special. So we're going to have this and another part. We're probably going to cover The Gifted again, because we did a last episode last week at CJLO, and we said at the end of that episode, like, we were covering the TV show The Gifted, and it turned out that wasn't the season finale, mid-season finale, because like it ends like as if it was a mid-season finale.
I don't know that show.
It's super geeky. It's X-Men. It's awesome. It's Fox. It's all the things that as geeks we want. Shout out to Ingrid, who's tuned in.
Ingrid.
And then that's the thing, like we did a whole review of the episode and amongst other things in that episode, and then I found out that it wasn't the last episode, the mid-season finale.
Right.
So there is another episode. So we're gonna the boys and I, Franklin Armstrong Collective, will be discussing that, and then we're also going to put that with this, so that we can kind of have a fun special episode for you guys. Jenny, once again, it's been years, and I've missed seeing you so much, and I hope we get to catch up more often.
Yes.
And thank you so much for coming through. This was a blast.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Once again, Jenny is free. Check it out. I linked to the page in the description of this video if you're watching.
Thank you. Follow me. Jenny is free.
Yeah, it's going to be everywhere. JennyIsFree.com, all of that stuff. So that's it, guys. We're out. Take care.
Peace and love.